Hello everyone and welcome back to Dashi99 Gaming. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Solo Raid event. Now I'm going to tell you guys everything you need to know about the Solo Raid event and basically give you a general idea of how it works. So today's video is going to be broken down into three different sections. The first section is going to be the overview, basically giving you a general idea and understanding of the Solo Raid event. After that, we're going to talk about the specific features. To understand it properly, we're going to compare it to the actual League Raid events and put them side by side so we can actually be able to tell from something that is already familiar. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the rewards. So without further ado, let's get into the video. The Solo Raid event was introduced on Tuesday, the 25th of June 2020 in the Injustice 4.0 update. Now this event, similar to the League Raid event, has a collective fighting system. I mean, that's the term that I use for it anyway. Now what that means is that each of the opponents in this game mode has a specific health total, which they will retain for the entirety of that event. And when you fight them, if you don't defeat them in one attempt, when you continue, the health bar will be on the same level as it was when you previously fought the opponent, and you can keep doing this till it totally empties and you defeat the opponent. Now each level has 4 sub-bosses and a main boss that you have to defeat. So how the refreshes work, I know a lot of people will be happy if you could fight them continuously, but that takes the fun out of the game. Now everyone can fight any of the bosses 3 times per refresh. These fights are quantified by what we know as pips, which means per refresh, everyone is entitled to 3 pips. And in a day we have 2 refreshes, which means everyone is entitled to 6 pips per day. And finally, for me anyway, the most exciting part of this new game mode is the rewards. In order for us to properly appreciate this game mode, we have to compare it to a previously existing game mode that is similar to this. League raids and solo raids actually share the same underlying principle. You have 4 sub bosses and a main boss. In the league raids, the main boss you fight, no matter the tier, is legendary Brainiac. And that's the same with the sub bosses. The first sub boss you have is Gorilla Grodd, then Dr. Fate, followed by horrific Scarecrow, and finally Captain Cold. So when you defeat all 4 sub-bosses in any order that you choose, you then gain access to fight boss Brainiac. Now the fight against Brainiac isn't just one fight. There are 4 phases, and in each of these phases, Brainiac has different characteristics. Bringing it back to the solo raids, the main principle is the same, 4 sub-bosses and 1 main boss. But the main difference is that in the Brainiac raid event, there are 8 tiers. However, in the solo raid events, there are just 5 phases. I think that range makes sense because up to 30 people in a league fight against the same bosses. However, in the solo raid events, it's just you. So I feel like it makes more sense for there to be fewer tiers. But here's the main difference. In the solo raid events, every single tier is different. They have different sub-bosses and main bosses. But I'm not going to waste time talking about all these bosses and sub-bosses because I'm going to go in depth into each tier in the subsequent videos. Now each of these bosses in all the raids, both Brainiac and the solo raid events, they are characters that already exist in the game, but they aren't the same as their regular counterparts in the game. Now this is because they have increased stats depending on the tier and depending on the difficulty. And they also have what we know as modifiers. Modifiers are certain features that are added to each of these bosses in their specific fights in order to make the fights more difficult and interesting. Now what these modifiers do make it possible for certain heroes to be prioritized over others when it comes to specific fights. Now without going into too many specifics, I'll give the Brainiac boss phase 3 fight as an example. In that fight, he has ground hazards which apply damage and power drains your heroes when you fight against him. But when you use a hero like Jon Stewart's Green Lantern, one of his passives is actually to neutralize ground hazards. So when you fight against Brainiac on phase 3 and you put Jon Stewart in your team, you automatically become immune to those hazards. The solo raid event is basically on for the entirety of 4 weeks. So I imagine that after 4 weeks, which is a month, the whole event restarts again. However, the Brainiac raid event actually lasts for 3 days. After 3 days, you can actually start another raid event after funding the raid. And the funding is basically a collective thing, so each of the tiers actually has a price that you have to pay to be able to participate in that event. I'm going to use T6, that's tier 6 as an example because it happens to be the most commonly fought tier. Now to participate in a T6 raid, you actually need to pay 1.2 million credits. So because a lot of leagues have a lot of heavy hitters, what happens is that before the 3-day span is over, the raid is already finished. But no matter how fast you finish the raid, you still have to wait that 3-day period before you initiate another raid. So what happens is that there is then introduced a cooldown period. So if you finish the raid in 1 day, it means you have to wait 2 days before you can participate in another raid event. So that 2-day period is actually the time that the leagues will use to fund the event. However, when it comes to solo raid events, there is no monetary requirement whatsoever. The only requirement that you have to meet up to in order to play this event is to reach an account level of level 20. And the last thing I'm going to use to compare these two events is actually the rewards. As long as you participate and your league completes the raid, depending on your ranking, according to the damage that you dealt, you actually get a reward. And these rewards usually consist of hero shards, credits, gear material, and XP capsules. Oh, and of course, 3 gears for specific characters. Now for T6 raids, these gears are usually at level 50, level 55, or level 60. That's pretty much what you get from the Brainiac raid event. Now I was actually really surprised by the solo event when I saw the rewards. So in the solo raid event, you actually also get hero shards. The number of shards you get depends on the tier that you just finished. So for tier 1, which is boss Harley Quinn, you get 160 shards, which means that immediately you unlock a hero at 3 stars. And that's actually one of the better rewards when it comes to the Brainiac raid events. It's only if you're very lucky that you can get 160 shards. Usually you get 60. Now in the second tier with boss Blade Master Robin, you get 360 shards. That means you unlock the character straight to 4 stars. But wait, it gets better. The next level, which is actually the 3rd tier, with boss Emerald Green Lantern, you get, wait for it, you get 800 hero shards. That means you get the hero straight to 5 stars. Now this is the same in the 4th tier with boss Last Lap the Joker. The final tier, to be fair, the majority of the players of the game are not going to reach that level. You actually get 1100. You get a hero straight to 6 stars. Now the other rewards we're going to talk about are the artifacts. When you complete every single tier in the solo raid event, you're guaranteed to get an artifact. In the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th tier, you get random artifacts. But when you defeat boss Darkseid, you actually get the Father Box artifact. Now this is an Apocalypse artifact, not an Azure artifact like the other ones in the game. And to be honest, once you reach this stage, I think you actually need that artifact. After you finish the event, you can play it again at a higher difficulty. From then, the game gets crazy. So you actually need to have that artifact. And I don't think you can make any significant progress if you don't. So other than that, you also get gems. Gems are one of the most valuable resources in the game. It can get you a lot of stuff. You also get Azure fragments, and you also get Apocalypse artifact fragments from each of the levels. Yeah, so we have pretty decent rewards. Gear reforges, but it's only from tier 3 all the way to tier 5. And last but not least, this is something that every single person in this game can find very useful. You get gear material. Now one thing I need to specify about the hero shards is that they're all gold heroes. Through this game mode, NetherRealm Studios are saturating the game with lots of gold hero shards. And what this means is that in many leagues there'll be excess shards, which is a good thing, which means that a lot of people will be able to get the heroes that they're requesting for. But it also means that the demand for gold heroes will increase, because if people already have some of the rare characters that they've been waiting for, it's reach a point where people will start to expect more characters. And I feel like we're justified in expecting more characters, because the last hero that was introduced to the game was Shazam, and that was like over a year ago when his movie came out. Since then, we've only had refactored gold heroes that became legendaries like Suicide Squad Harley Quinn and legendary characters. And we know that legendary characters aren't really they aren't really like necessary to progress at the game. They'll obviously make your life a lot easier, but legendary characters are basically for NetherRealm Studios to make their money, because whenever they release a legendary character, they put their gears up for sale. Most of the really good players in the game have gold heroes that are maxed out, and those are the main damage dealers. I mean, unless of course you have the special ones like Black Manta, for instance, or Batman Ninja, Gorilla God, which are not even necessary. If you have them, they're a huge boost, but they're not necessary. In the next video, we're going to be talking about possible characters that can be added to the Injustice 2 mobile roster. Thanks for watching today's video, and hopefully I'm going to release another video within the next couple of days. So yeah. Now some of you might be wondering why I'm wearing a Deshi 360 shirt. Well, I actually have another YouTube channel called Deshi 360. It's actually my main channel. This is just my gaming channel, so make sure you check that out. I have some really nice stuff there.